Hi, my name is John Berecz, and I'm a student at Wakefield High School. Over the past 3 years, I've heard a lot about Proposition 2.5. To find out more about Proposition 2.5, I interviewed Dr. Mayo, the superintendent of schools, Betsy Sharon, a member of the school committee, Senior Officer Ed Hunt, and Junior Officer Tina Incarnasio. These people gave me an in-depth feel from not only the students' perspective, but the administration's perspective on how Proposition 2.5 affects the students at Wakefield High. I feel that students at Wakefield High should not be looked at as numbers.
Okay, zoom out now. I'll just keep. No, I don't want to do it. We probably have to tilt down a bit.
All right.
Yes, there are programs cut at all levels, as I mentioned to you, and we're even considering additional cuts. At the high school alone, we used to offer Italian, we used to offer German. Those are languages that are not offered anymore. We used to offer journalism, drama, public speaking in the English department, and those are not offered anymore. We used to offer computer math in the math department. That subject is not offered anymore. We had more sections. I think the biggest effect in the high school is you reduce the number of sections, and that means the enrollments in the sections increase. There are more students per class. Also, the other effect is that students can't get into sections because of conflicts, because there aren't enough sections in all of the areas. So that's a more subtle change. Next year we're thinking of reducing a whole program in, at least the beginning program in power mechanics, which I regret.
Have there been any courses cut that you would have taken?
Last year they had talked about cutting the various AP courses, which next year when I'm a senior I'm taking a lot of AP courses, so I wouldn't want them to be cut. And they haven't had Spanish 5 honors for the past 2 years, and that's a course that I would have taken my senior year.
Yeah, I would have taken that last year too,
Yeah.
but then they cut it.
They cut it.
Yes, in the competitive society that all the major reform education movements are pointing to as a place where we want to send our graduates. They're telling us there are not going to be many more unskilled jobs. Youngsters have to be computer literate, so we should be not reducing computer courses, we should be adding them. Youngsters have to compete in a global marketplace. We should be adding languages. Ideally, we should be teaching Japanese and German. Those are two economic powers that our graduates are going to have to compete with in the world of work. The business is telling us they want graduates that are highly skilled in math and science. So we really want to promote those programs, not reduce those programs. We had to reduce earth science over the last 10 years. We should be increasing and adding to those programs. So we're in a dilemma. It's a dilemma where taxpayers feel that they've had enough, they can't pay any more, and our enrollments are going up, and we need to fund education for the new world, the new age that our graduates are going to meet when they leave school. So those are some dilemmas we're dealing with.
Dr. Mayor, how are we going to survive the cuts if nothing is done about them and more cuts are made each year?
That's a very good question, and I don't know that there's an answer to that question, because even if no programs were added, even if there were no increase in negotiated contracts with personnel, we'd have problems in just maintaining the facility. The facility is all over town. The school department is worth about $60 million. Just maintaining it, keeping it up to date, putting on new roofs, replacing boilers, the normal wear and tear and maintenance of the plant will need additional money. Probably there's not enough in Proposition 2.5 to even accommodate that type of consideration, not including educational programs and changes that are needed in educational programs. So I don't know the answer to that. I think there has to be a definite change in the way education is funded. Taxpayers cannot pay any more than they're paying now for the schools, and they're being very vocal about that. So the question is, how are we going to finance the future of education, not only in Wakefield, but in the entire country? It's a good question. I don't have the answer, but I do know it has to be changed. The money for education has to come from another source.
You don't have too much space on that side. We need to-
Business, John. It's not the business of the superintendent or the principals or the students or the teachers alone. It's everybody's business, and we're going to get everybody's opinion, and we're going to develop a long-range plan that's going to be realistic. It's going to take in the fact that we're not going to have a lot of additional money in the future, but we have to run a quality education program for the generations of students that are going to come.
What has happened to the school in the past 2 years with the budget cuts from Proposition 2?
Notable changes that has taken place in the past 2 years has been the elimination of the positions of the 9 department heads that we had had for the past 20 years at Wakefield High School. Unfortunately, with budget constraints, we're in a situation where we had to look very, very carefully at how our money was being spent, and it was decided by the school committee that we would try a new model this year and replace the 9 department heads with 3 department leaders. We're still studying that to see what the effect has been on the curriculum and on the programs up here, and that report I hope will be in before the end of the year. Other changes that have happened in the high school in the past 2 years have been the fact that we haven't been able to return programs that have been cut since the institution of Proposition 2.5 in 1981-82 school year. We've had some of the areas in the shop that have had to been reduced programs. We have not been able to provide electronics, nor will we be able to provide it. And we've had to cut back in some of the areas that we would like to provide for the students. In order to circumvent this problem, we've tried collaborating with the town of Melrose and providing programs for our students in the town of Melrose with at-risk programs that they have, and they're allowed to keep them. And they in turn send students up here for programs that they have had to eliminate since the imposition of Proposition 2.5. What we're trying to do is run the program and the school system as efficiently as we possibly can under the constraints that we are faced with in the fiscal area.
Have you, as students at Wakefield High, Tina, I can ask you, and Ed Hunt, have you noticed anything different in the past couple of years that's happened? Anything you've noticed being affected by the budget cuts?
Okay, recently they initiated user fees for playing sports, and I think that's the worst thing in the world. You shouldn't have to pay money to play a sport. You shouldn't have to pay money to join all the clubs that you want to be in, because in the end it's only hurting you as a person. I mean, I joined the drama club, and you start off by paying a $40 user fee to be in the drama club, and then you have to pay for each and every event that you do during the year. So by the end of the year, you might spend $200. And for every sport, if you play 3 sports, you're going to pay $100 right there. So you're paying to go to school, where as other communities, you don't have to pay at all.
And also, over the past 3 years, there's been tons of teachers cut, and a lot of teachers are teaching courses they didn't originally teach, and it's just not good for the kids.
Are we going to survive the cuts if more and more cuts are made each year and nothing's done about them?
Again, I'll go back to collaboration. A subcommittee on the school committee meets once a month with people from Melrose, Stoneham, Linfield, Reading, and Woburn, and we're trying to, as I have said before, look at programs, look at the numbers of students who are electing to take those particular programs, and provide these programs for them at one site or another, whether it be in Melrose, whether it be in Wakefield, whether it be in Reading, whether it be in Stoneham, but to try not to deprive the students of the opportunity to elect particular programs for which they have a natural inclination and something that they might want to make their career, and use this as a stepping stone.
That you'd like to see? Oh, but are there any programs you feel Wakefield should see promoted?
I would like to bring back many of the programs that have been eliminated because of the 2.5 crunch, so to speak, that we've been in. But again, I have to look at it efficiently, and if these programs are not going to service a certain number of students, then again, I'm going to go back to collaboration. I hate to keep beating on that particular word, but right now that seems to be the only way to go. That we go back and we find 2 or 3 other communities that are also feeling the crunch in a particular area, and we share it, and we share the responsibility, and the students are not deprived of that. I would like to see all of the programs come back, but I know that isn't going to happen, and that's not reality. We must work within the constraints. We have a directive from town meeting to stay within a certain budget, and we must stay within that budget. But we must do it in the best way that's possible. And this is where I rely on the administration, the central administration, and their staff to let us know in priority order what we can live without. Unfortunately, none of us likes to raise our hand at a meeting to cut programs or personnel or to institute users' fees. It bothers me every time I put my hand up to have to support that, but we have no choice. We must stay within our budget, and unfortunately some things must go by the wayside. But the main thing that should never go by the wayside is any one student. If we have one student go by the wayside, then I think.
Do you think that a Proposition 2.5 override would solve these problems?
Well, I don't know if it'll exactly solve them, but something has to stop, because you can't keep taking money out of education, because right now we're dealing with such a low budget right now that any more cuts would just make the school so much worse. I mean, like with classes and teachers and stuff. I mean, you can't keep cutting teachers, and that way the kids won't get educated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm not quite sure that overriding 2.5 would be the best way, but it is something to look ahead to. That you have to have more money, or our school's not going to be compared on the national scale. It's not going to be as good as it should be.
Really, no more money can come out of the school.
Yeah.
I mean, like over the past 3 years, I mean, it's such a huge difference with the teachers and all.
I'd like to thank everyone that helped participate in this program. Throughout all my interviews, I've come to one conclusion. There is no easy solution, and in order to find a solution, everyone is going to have to work together.